tennis game, tank game, racing game, some version of blackjack, a baseball game, always a baseball game. Back in the days before video games were allowed to be creative, joking of course, most early console games were just copies of whatever was popular in the arcades at that time. And those arcade games were really just a simple premise like that. With no characters, story, or distinct setting to worry about, and once companies had their programming talent in place, they were simple enough to recreate on their own console with a legally distinct name change. Among those popular arcade experiences were the Western Shootout games. The basic idea being that you have two cowboys on opposite sides of a cactus shooting at each other. In many ways, it's not too dissimilar from many of the two-player versus shooting games that came before, like Computer Space or Tanks, but the Western backdrop and actual controllable human opponents were enough to set it apart. There would be a few other shootout games to follow, like Boot Hill and Sheriff, but the one I want to focus on is Atari's Outlaw. Outlaw's gameplay was actually quite different, requiring players to use a plastic gun and shoot the outlaws that would pop up on screen amongst the backdrop artwork. I couldn't find much in regards to actual gameplay or screenshots, but I'll leave a link to 74XX Arcade Repair's video on it if you want to see more information on it. After the successful launch of Atari's video computer system in 1977, the programming team was tasked with coming up with a second wave of games to release before the '78 holiday season. One of these games they chose to adapt was Outlaw, though obviously they would have to make some changes considering that the VCS didn't have a light gun attachment. So what form would this end up taking? As you could probably guess, it was another two-player shootout game, though probably the best remembered one. The controls here are pretty simple. You use the joystick to move and the button to shoot. Or should I say, releasing the button shoots. See, pressing and holding the button makes your cowboy crouch, and from here, your movement is now locked in place, and you can either aim up, down, or straight ahead with the joystick. Letting go of the button then finally fires the shot. Aiming is important since your shots ricochet off the top and bottom of the screen, so more often than not, that's how you get your kills. Or hits. Or sits. The first game mode features a cactus at the center of the screen, similar to Gunfight, though there are also Stagecoach and Moving Stagecoaches options in the later variations. Regardless of the obstacle, though, neither player can move around it. There's an invisible wall blocking your way, even if it looks like you should be able to move around the top of that cactus. Outlaw also has destructible versions of all three stage objects, as well as destructible walls. This allows you to choose to either create a hole to fire your bullets through, try and keep the object intact as long as possible to use as cover, or just blast the object away as quickly as possible to create an open field. Yeah, it's an interesting idea because, you could just shoot through the obstacle to give yourself a gap, but then it's also, you don't really want to do that because you'll get rid of your own cover. It's worth noting that the invisible wall is still there, even if the coach, wall, or cactus is gone. So you can't just go over to the other side and pin the player into a corner. You're also stuck in place once you do fire until it either hits a player or disappears against the back wall, which in turn ends up with a lot of trades.
It creates so many situations where it's like, you get the shot, but now you're stuck. Man, it does really make it, it makes it so you really gotta watch it.
The fact that I can get a shot off.
I'm like, yeah, almost no matter what. It's really hard because, like you said, you really gotta pick where you shoot.
Well, and once the bullet... It's like you have to be so far back against the wall to get the bullet to bounce over there that then you're really vulnerable if your opponent gets one over.
Yeah. And because you can't move after you've shot, just kind of makes you a sitting duck as long as they were able to get the counter angle going. Like we did there.
This is resolved in Game 2, which has a feature called Getaway, allowing players to move again after a bullet is fired. Oddly enough, Game 2 with the cactus is the only one of the 16 variations to include it. Given how many variations there are in the game, it seems like a strange oversight. Games 4, 9, and 10 add a new mechanic into the mix, 6-shooter. This means you're now limited to 6 shots that you can fire as indicated by the bar under the player's scores at the top of the screen, and once you run out of shots, you have to wait for the other player to also run out before the game will give you an automatic reload. It forces the players to be a bit more careful with their shots, or start working on their evasion skills. The final mode included here is a single-player only target shoot. There's a moving target on the right side of the screen, and your goal is to hit the target 10 times before the timer hits 99 seconds. It's nothing special, but compared to some of the other similar versus-focused games on the system, it's nice to at least have something you can play on your own. Outlaw is a fun and simple Western-flavored arcade-style PvP game. So many good memories of playing the game with my dad and sometimes letting him win. But while Atari was focused on the past, their competition was looking into the future. Looking into the year 2100 to be exact. This is Showdown in 2100 AD for the Magnavox Odyssey 2. According to the box and manual, you play as android cowboys having a duel in an authentic acre of the Old West. How is it set in the future and somehow also in the Old West? Is there some kind of time travel involved? Well, truthfully, I think the setting was probably something Steve Lenner, the Odyssey 2 manual writer, came up with at the last minute to try and set the game apart from its competition. There's nothing really in-game that would make you think that this is set in 2100 AD, or that either of those swaggering cowboys are actually androids. Gameplay-wise, it looks very similar to Outlaw, even down to the 10 points needed to win the game, but there are some major differences. For one, you can't aim at all. Pressing the action button fires your gun, and that's it. In place of this, the developers added bullets that ricochet off of the trees. I'm not sure what said trees are made of, or how that would even be possible, but that's just how it is in the future, I guess. Or, the Old West? Or, I don't even know anymore. Maybe these are time-traveling android trees from the future? The whole ricochet tree thing is both the most entertaining element of the game, and also its biggest frustration. It generally results in players being almost scared to fire their gun unless they have a clear shot. I think Zayden and I ended up killing ourselves more often than we actually ended up shooting each other.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, do I have to go reload first? Oh, no. Okay, I shot.
You just killed yourself.
I guess I just shot myself.
I just reloaded. Well, so far I haven't had to do anything.
Yeah, so far I just shot myself twice. So you can't... I thought you said you could shoot through trees, but you can't shoot through trees, right?
You can only shoot through them if you're, touching them. But if you're anywhere back from it, it does that.
But yeah, the white one scroll down and stuff. Okay.
Oh, I clipped the top of my hat. When you do make use of the trees to score a kill, however, it feels pretty incredible, even if it's usually down to luck.
Yeah, but so many of the ricochets just bouncing back towards you. I'm like, I want to use the ricochet, but I'm like,
oh my God.
I guess that would work. I guess. It's like, it feels like there's just a much larger chance of me shooting myself.
That was some anime protagonist shot that you just pulled off. It hit almost every tree before it came over here. Oh.
Ooh, that was close. I was like, maybe just don't move. Yeah, sometimes when it starts to ricochet, I just kind of freeze because I'm like, am I just going to mess myself up by moving? Oh, and the trees definitely have some wonky collision when you try and walk into them. So yeah, that happened again.
Oh my word.
You could just use your, I guess maybe your android powers to just glitch through the trees.
There are no defined map layouts either. Every time somebody gets hit, the game freezes to show the death animation, and then moves on to another randomized tree layout. It does help keep the game feeling fresh, though I will say some of the layouts are kinda lame. The other main difference here is the reload mechanic. Each player has 6 shots at the start of the round, and the only way to reload once you run out is to touch a tree. Yeah, according to the manual, the androids hid extra bullets in the trees that match their color. Not sure when they had the time to do that, but I guess it's kind of an interesting idea. My only real issue with it is that the placement of your tree can sometimes feel a bit unbalanced. One player's tree might be right next to them from the start, and the others will be on the complete opposite side of the map. One final nitpick. It seems that whoever programmed this game was very proud of that walking animation. Every time you move, even if you give the joystick just the slightest push, you have to wait through an entire walk cycle animation before you're able to turn your android around and face the other direction.
What?
Whoa,
Okay.
Oh no, why am I facing the wrong way?
I was wondering if you just suddenly turned around.
It's like... Oh my
What?
gosh. I tried to fire left and it went right.
Yeah, you have to be very... Like, half the time I don't shoot just because I'm, like, hyper paying attention to which way my character's facing, and I'm like, no, facing the wrong direction. Oh, there we go.
So I guess there's no animation cancels in this.
It's something you can get used to, but it did lead me to make some pretty major mistakes early on. Overall, I can't say it's a better game than Outlaw, but in playing the two games side by side, I can say I was more entertained by Showdown. I'm guessing that's really down to my enjoyment of local multiplayer games with chaotic or random elements than the actual quality of the game's design. I did grow up playing the early Mario Party games, after all. Whether it was seen as just too simple for quote-unquote modern 1980s gaming tastes, or if it had something to do with the culture's general waning interest in the Western genre as a whole, the Shootout game ended up being a pretty brief fad. By 1980, the genre had essentially vanished with the emergence of two newer and incredibly popular game styles, the fixed-screen shoot-'em-up and the maze chase. Even Mattel wouldn't bother to try their hand at making one for the Intellivision, and they copied most of the popular game concepts back in the day. That said, I still think it's one of the more enjoyable game types from the medium's early years to return to, right up there with paddle games like Pong and Breakout. Simple, but timeless.